Hey everybody, it's Amy Belzer-Tennant here, the genealogy reporter, and it is Family Story Friday. So I'm going to be sharing a fun story from my own family history or from someone else's, but today's about me, my family history. And I'm going to start out with the Big Grandma stories because Big Grandma was a colorful person. She was my mother's mother, and she has lots of stories, fun stories, some sad stories. So I thought I'd read to you from my book that I published after I blogged about it. So it's not an actual published book. I just had it put together for myself. Okay, so we called this grandma Big Grandma because when I was little, I was trying to tell my dad or ask my dad, why do we have a big grandma? And I couldn't think of the word small or tiny, and I said a baby grandma because my other grandmother was about 4'10", 90 pounds, wet, and Big Grandma was about 5'5", 5'6", over 150 pounds. So she looked huge compared to the other grandma. So we called her Big Grandma. Not to mention her busts. Oh my goodness, her bosoms, she called them. I always thought she had the largest bosoms ever until I realized that it was only because she stuffed all of her precious items in there. Yeah, men's wallet, hankies, anything you needed, snuff, spit bottle, stuck in the bosoms. Anyway, so I'm going to read you this story about Big Grandma. Big Grandma was born Goldie Mae Witt in 1910. She said she weighed only 1.5 pounds and was the first child of her mother to live past 1 month old. Her mother had married at 13 years of age. Yeah, I said 13. And she had several babies die before she had one finally live. They lived in Blackwater, Lee County, Virginia. Big Grandma's father died when she was only 9 years old. Her mother then took Grandma and her little brother to live with her mother, who was Grandma Betty, and her husband. Now that husband was Enoch Creech. He becomes a very important character in the life of Big Grandma. Enoch was not her biological grandfather. It was her grandmother's second husband. And he apparently had quite the bad influence that shaped the colorful personality of Big Grandma. I'm not happy to share this horrible little story with you, but it really does paint the picture of who Big Grandma was. It's an awful little story, but it's one she loved to tell us kids. When she was about 9, shortly after going to live with her grandparents, she did something she was not supposed to. Her uncle caught her and told on her, and she got punished. Her grandpa, Enoch, pulled her onto his lap and stroked her hair and said, "Don't you punish Pickaninny. She's a good girl." Then he told her not to get mad at Uncle, just get even. And she did. In fact, I think she definitely took that to heart for the rest of her life. Uncle, her uncle that had told on her, had recently bought some new baby chicks. And while he was gone, Big Grandma went into the coop. She went in and she grabbed each little baby chicken and she pulled their legs off. And then she pulled their heads off. She hid the legs under a rock and the heads somewhere else and left the little bodies for her uncle to find. Can you believe that? What kind of little girl would do such a thing? My grandma, apparently. But she laughed till she cried when she told us that story. And she said that her uncle never told on her again. Well, I guess not. So that's the first story in our Family Story Fridays about Big Grandma. Tune in next Friday for another fun story. Bye-bye.